Hi, thank you for having me here today. I'll be completely honest, when I had AIGA reach out to me, I was like, AIGA, AGI, AGA, AIGA, AGA. Because I'm not a designer, putting this Google Slides presentation together was like a struggle for me. So you can make fun of my fonts, they're probably out of date, I don't know. But that's not what I want to talk about. So yeah, when I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about and trying to think of what's been consistent throughout my career and what's made me successful. And when I say successful, how I define success is I do like waking up in the morning and figuring out what my day looks like, and it's never the same. It's always very different. I meet a variety of people in a variety of different experiences and going through different things, and I thrive on that, and I love, like Meg was saying, I love like connecting, and maybe if I can play like a small role in like one connection helping someone, that like brings me a lot of personal joy, because a lot of the connecting I do is passion. It's not really my job. I have a lot of jobs. So when I was thinking about like what possible knowledge I could share or anything that might be valuable to this audience, I was thinking throughout my entire experience, I've started to really embrace not being a perfectionist. And I actually used to think that was a negative quality of mine. And now that I've kind of been putting all the connecting all the dots, I'm really happy that I'm not a perfectionist, because I think if I would have been so focused on anything I do being perfect, that I would have just been so fearful and just shut down. So I really, when I really think about everything, it's always about people and platforms. And you have people and they need a platform. And that's really what I like to focus on. So I do always kind of, and this is me in a photo, I was like, just had the hi, and then I was like, I had a photo even though I'm standing here. So things I'm gonna talk about today are myself. Sorry, I actually don't like talking about myself. I like asking people about themselves. It's more interesting to me. And I'm gonna talk about the value of not being a perfectionist. So this quote is something that's like always in my mind, like 24/7. And I think how this connects to not being a perfectionist is, if you like think about how many people are in the world and how many different things are happening every second of every day, all of the emotions people are experiencing, all of the wants and needs, it's overwhelming and it's constantly changing. So how this relates to not being a perfectionist is, if you just sit and think about your idea and think about your idea and think about how perfect it's gonna be and never put it out in the world, by the time you maybe get it out there, everything's changed again. So it's like, for me, it's like, just get it out there. And it's probably not gonna be that great at first, but if you can like keep adding to it and building on it, then you'll be surprised at kind of what happens. And that's been my experience, is I never intended to do any of these things ever. And it's kind of been, I don't wanna call it luck, because I work super hard and I probably work too hard, but I think I don't call it work because I do really enjoy what I do. So what do I do? Like Meg and Athena said, I'm a connector, and I mean that in like every sense of the word. I connect people a lot. I love when I like meet someone, I'm like, oh my God, if you connected with this person, I'd be curious like what you could make together. I connect brands, I connect stories, I connect strategies, I connect values, and I think there's so much beauty in when we can share all of those things. I'm a producer. I produce a lot of events. I produce content, photography, video. I'm an influencer. That word's kind of weird sometimes, and I've decided that I'm gonna embrace it, because with influence, I can do what I'm really passionate about, which is making the world a happier, kinder place. I'm fairly creative. I'm a doer, which I've learned is important, and I really live for telling stories. I do really love people and their stories, and so that's gonna kind of start with, this is how my story starts. So I grew up in northern Minnesota in a small town called Grand Rapids. There's not a lot of creativity, and I mean there's creativity everywhere, but it's not really something that people put a lot of value on. And my dad is a mailman, and my mom's a nurse, and And a lot of people that I grew up with, was a lot of hockey and like hunting and fishing. And so I kind of always felt a little disconnected from my community growing up. And so I remember thinking like, I need to be around people and I need to be around a lot of culture and diversity. I've always loved fashion, has been like a big thing in my life since I was really young. And I kept thinking based on like movies or the internet, like I gotta move to New York or I have to move to LA because that's the only like place these things exist. And Minneapolis like never really crossed my mind once. And so what did I do? I went to University of North Dakota and actually studied mechanical engineering and had a golf scholarship. And like, if you know me, that's very shocking. I think one of my favorite jokes is one of my friends didn't know I played golf. And I actually still play and I love it. It's really fun. I think it's just like, I'm around people so much that I like just being out by myself in the green space. But my friend goes, you played golf? Like you play golf? And I was like, yeah. She's like, you can't golf in a kimono, right? Because I wear lots of kimonos. Anyway. Side note. I was playing golf in North Dakota, which is also a really terrible place to play golf because it's very windy, and studying engineering and just feeling super like, what am I doing? And I think it was kind of, I had like one of those, my parents are divorced, but I had one of those moms who like kind of struggled as a single mom growing up, and like, I think I wanted to like have a stable career, and I thought math, science, and like I have 3 older brothers and they all went down that path, and I was like pretty good at it, but I was just miserable, and I didn't want to be a starving artist. And even though my mom was super supportive, it was kind of always like get a job and get health insurance, like that was like the top things. So I didn't want to, not disappoint her, but I was like, that fear was always in the back of my head, like how am I gonna not be a starving artist? And so I was on the phone with her one night just being like, there's like not a lot to do in North Dakota. And it's like anyone, you either joined a frat or a sorority, so it was really hard to make friends and meet people. And I just remember just being like, I cannot do this. Like, what do I do? And she's like, what about graphic design? And I was like, no, like I do not want to do graphic design. Like this is my graphic design ability right here. And so then she's like, well, what about advertising? And I was like, well, what is advertising? Like I really don't even really understand what it is as an industry. Now I unfortunately know a lot about it. It's changed a lot too since I went to school, but so long story short, I moved to Minneapolis, started studying advertising, and at the time I was, and I graduated, and then I was working as a receptionist at a production company in Minneapolis, and then on the side I was waitressing at Glick's like every night, and I was just like so burnt out, and it's like, I was like, God, I'm making more money as a waitress, but I know like I want to work creatively, but I'm like getting paid crap. So it's like I have to do both, and I was just getting so burnt out. And at the same time, I think just like uninspired. And then I started just getting out of like my regular things that I would do and the people I would hang out with, and just going and seeing what was going on in Minneapolis. And I was like, oh my God, there's actually a lot going on here. Whether it be in the theater scene or in the art scene, the music scene, the culinary scene, design, entrepreneurs, and I really liked the proximity to like the lakes and the greenery, and I kind of just fell in love with Minneapolis, and I wanted to share with everyone else like what was so unique about this place, and remind you, this is like 9 or 10 years ago, and I didn't know anyone, and I didn't realize that having connections could be so valuable. So I remember thinking back to what I really love, and I love people and their stories, and I like sharing them. And like I said, I've always loved fashion, but I actually hate most things about the fashion industry. I don't like how exclusive it can be. I don't like focus on money and brands and kind of like making people feel less than. Like that's never what fashion was for me. Fashion was like fun. It was kind of like an escape. It was like everyone was a character. It's like, I don't even care if you wear black jeans and a black t-shirt every day, you're saying something, and I loved that. So I kept thinking about like fashion, people, stories, like bringing people together, and all of these beautiful communities we had. And actually, it's funny that Meg mentioned this recently, because what I noticed is like kind of like all the photographers hung out together, or like all the chefs, or like there's all these little groups. But I'm like, why don't these people hang out with these people? Because they're very like, but they're very different, and I'd be curious what they could possibly learn together. So this all kind of came together, and I was like, I'm gonna do a fashion show. But I hate fashion shows, so I wanna do a fashion show about people in our community that are doing really unique things. And what's actually funny is all the people here today, Chris, Cloud, and Athena, and Mike were actually all in one version of I Am Minneapolis at one time, because they're all really smart and creative and interesting, and I wanted to celebrate them. So, okay, I remember when I was practicing, I was like, don't look down a lot and don't say like a lot. I don't know how many times I've probably said it already, but I'm gonna try to be more aware of that. So the hardest thing when you're starting something is like you don't have any of the things you need. So like the first thing was like, I'm gonna do a fashion show. Okay, I'm gonna make a list of all the things I need. I need people, I need money, I need a venue, I need clothes for these models to wear, I need the models, I need a website, I need a logo, I need help, I need like production, I need AV, and I was like, I don't have any of these things, so I can't do this. But I was like, okay, no, I'm gonna do this. And I thought like the first thing that made things real is I just started telling everyone about it. I'm like, oh, I'm doing this fashion show, I'm doing this fashion show. Little did they know I had nothing, like all I had was this idea. And this goes back to like, I get in, not debates with people, but I think ideas are crap because execution is what it all comes down to. I talk to so many people like, I have this idea, and it's almost like they're looking for my approval. I'm like, go do your idea. But it's so scary because then you actually are committing to doing something. So here we are, I have this huge list, I have none of the things, I don't know anyone, I'm working full time at this receptionist position, waitressing, I'm covered in student loan debt, I'm like barely paying my bills. So it's like, why not add this to my plate? And so I was like, okay, how can I start? And I actually at the time was waitressing at Glick's. There's this band called the Honey Dogs. Adam Levy is a local musician here. He's pretty influential in the music scene here. And he's a really nice guy, older gentleman. And I was like, hey, Adam, will you model in my fashion show? And he's like, I'm not a model. I'm like, no, but you're very influential in music, and I think you're really interesting. And I think he kind of felt bad for me, and he's like, okay. And I was like, okay, cool, I have one thing. I have like one model, and that's all I have. This is real. And then I'd go to the next person, I'd be like, hey, will you be in my fashion show? They'd be like, no, who are you? I'd be like, Adam Levy is gonna do it. They're like, oh, Adam Levy, huh? Okay, yeah, I'll do it. And I was like, yes, and I have 2 people. Pretty soon I have like 9 people. I'm like, oh my God, this is like a real thing. And then I'm like, okay, I have 9 people, like where's this place gonna happen, or where's this fashion show gonna happen? And these people were like not, like, I don't wanna say not important or whatever, but they're like people that I was like, had a lot of respect for. I'd like read articles on them, and I'm like, you know, anyone from like the director of a nonprofit that I thought was doing really interesting work to a tattoo artist to, you know, a musician, all are agreeing to be a part of this. And one thing led to another, and pretty soon I'm sitting down and talking with the venue person, and she's helping me. And one thing I will say about Minneapolis, it is sometimes hard to meet people, but I will say people are really willing to help out if you have something you want to do. And I think when you are asking for help, you have to make sure that they get something out of it. And I think creating win-win-win situations is very, very important. And that's something that I always think about whenever I do anything. Like, everyone has to benefit or it's no good. So, yeah. And then so I was talking to my mom. And again, like, she's so friggin' great, but she's like a nurse. Like, she, anything creative was scary to her, and like I just watched her like work her ass off her whole life and like kind of struggle. And so it was like I felt like her like concern and worry, and I took that very serious. And I told her like I'm like, Mom, I promise I know what I'm doing. Like, it might not make any sense right now, but I think this is something. And again, like, this is kind of like an influencer show before influencer was really a term. And I do like a social campaign leading up to the event, talking about who these people are, sharing their stories. And like for as long as like these are just some people that I've worked with throughout the years, like I was just always fascinated, like there's someone here that has like a bitters company and like a cocktail program and like does all these cool things, and he's like this character. There's this guy that dresses up in like all gold in a band called Tickle Torture and like puts on these insane shows, and like all these people were living here. I was like just so overwhelmed. And so I just wanted to build a stage and a platform, a stage like metaphorically and literally, to celebrate these people and share them. And so, yeah, I did Minneapolis, and I was so proud of it. And it wasn't that I was really that proud of the event itself. I was proud of bringing all these people together from different backgrounds and like the relationships that they formed. And I just got so much energy from like connecting people. So it's funny because it's like, yeah, it was a show, but it was way more than that. For me, it was like, I love connecting people. So then, and I also think that this is like one of my values. Like I definitely think we need more Quirk in the world. I think things are just so serious that it's okay to like kind of make fun of ourselves and to laugh and be weird. I think we're always just way too serious. And I think the creative process can be so harsh and frustrating, and I wanted to make it a way that's like, it's kind of really messy, and I think messy is good, and in the mess you kind of find what works and what doesn't. But if you're just in your head about it, or if you're just on your whiteboard or your notebook or whatever it is, like you're never gonna know. Like I never intended to make any kind of platform. I was gonna do a fashion show, and what happened after that, it kind of just developed. And if I would have just sat there and never done this fashion show, I might not have built anything after that. So next comes the story of, don't play the video quite yet, of I'm Kindness. And that came from, again, okay, so now I'm doing these fashion shows. I am still working full time, I'm still waitressing, I'm like freelance styling, I'm doing way too much, but I knew I wanted to get involved in my community and volunteer. But all the organizations I looked into are really rigid as far as like, you gotta be here every Thursday from 5 to 7. You don't wanna be the person that doesn't show up to a meeting and then, people are like, oh, Sarah wasn't at another meeting, So it's like, shoot, what if there was like a way for me to go do things in my community more on my terms and serve communities that I wanted to, that I was interested in, and also make it fun and make it kind of like no strings attached volunteering. And so going back to my mom, she is a nurse and she works in assisted living, and like I've, for as long as I remember, like have passion for senior citizens. I think that's partially because I think our society kind of messes up how we care for our seniors and the importance they have. And I think all of my most like favorite memories are spending time listening to someone's story that's like lived a whole full life full of like craziness. And it's crazy, they're just like sitting in these senior homes sometimes, like just for days and hours. And I was talking to my mom one day and I was like, Mom, like I want to do something with seniors, but like what do they like to do? Like what's fun for them? She's like, they like joking around, and they like, when we have entertainment, and she's like, they like being pampered. And I was like, oh, that's something that I have connections with. Like with all my work in fashion, I know all these hair and makeup artists. I know these photographers and these videographers. I was like, what if we just like go to a senior home and spend the day pampering these seniors and surprise them? And it was crazy. I had no expectations. I had no idea what I was doing. And it was really funny, actually, when I started calling around these senior homes, they're very like, what do you want from us? And I was like, no, I get it. This is kind of weird. And I was like, I just want to come in and like, we'll paint the nails and like fix their hair and like just spend time talking to them and bring some energy to the space. And it was funny because my friend that's a filmmaker reached out because he heard what I was doing, and he's like, hey, can I come film? I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. Totally like wasn't thinking about it. Now I'm like, of course, thank you like for filming this experience because I have this video to share. So then when I would go to another I'm Kindness event at a senior home, I could tell them what we were gonna do. The video actually went viral, which I wasn't expecting, and I didn't like share it anywhere to go viral. People just started sharing it, and then I think it got featured on some blog. And then I had people all over the country being like, hey, will you come do this in my city? Like, we love it so much. And I'd kind of get on the phone and explain to them, like, you can do this. It's very easy. And they were really excited about that they could do it themselves. And I think sometimes it's our natural thing that we just overthink things to death. Like, we don't have all the pieces, we don't do anything. And so my whole message with I Am Kindness is like, just do as much as you can. Like, you don't have to go leave your job and leave your family and go volunteer across the world. Like, do what you can with what you have. Like, some days it might be as little as opening a door for someone, and some days it might be bigger. And so the whole message is like, just try your best. And so the funny thing too is, like, this goes back to the connections. I had brands start reaching out being like, hey, we're trying to reach this audience. We love how authentic what you're doing is. I'm like, that's because it is authentic. Everyone's trying to be authentic. And so it was exciting and funny to me, and that's when I'm like, what if this was a platform that everyone could plug into? And the way I see it is, sometimes we want to not disrespect brands, but say like, oh, you have no place here, but if they can support your idea and make it bigger and make more good happen, like, that's not such a bad thing if the intentions stay the same. Here's like a quick, I know I'm running out of time, a quick video from our first time kindness outing. That was not an accident, but wasn't my original intention.
Yeah. Yeah. Was this a surprise today?
This is a real surprise today. I can't believe this is happening. Makeup I have is lipstick.
My mother always wanted me to look like Shirley Temple.
I grew up with brothers, so I learned to be tough.
Did you? Wonderful. Wonderful. I've never had a makeup done.
And maybe a little bit of lipstick.
Oh, I think we'll do a little bit of blush and some lipstick.
Oh my God, what am I going to look like?
You look amazing. And then we'll take it off for him too.
Good job.
How does it look on camera?
I like that. That's good.
You like these two the best?
Come back into it. Right there. That's great. Can you wink at me? Come on, you got a lot of bling on there.
I'm bling, yeah.
I'd like one of you to come on over here and do what I'm doing.
You look beautiful. Let's give a round of applause for Joe. Barb looking chic in brown. Let's hear it for Helen.
Wow!
You're darling. You're darling. Let's hear it for our lead.
All right, everybody right here.
Okay. Rock the boom.
Where's your best smiles?
So yeah, that was really fun. And I think the reason I like that is I didn't have anything. Like, I didn't have a nonprofit business plan written, you know what I mean? And if I would have been like, I want to start a nonprofit, and then I would like started paperwork, but like not known even what type of nonprofit I might want to do. And I think that a lot of times we want to have all the pieces of our puzzle figured out before we create something, which I understand, but there's a time to just try things and, think about like what could be. And you might try something, it might be terrible, and then like, you learn and grow from that. And for me, I've just stayed true to my values, and I found kind of like my path goes like this. And I still am trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up. But I'm starting to get recognized for being a connector and an influencer and what I stand for. So after that, after I'm Kindness started, there's all these like little I ams that would trickle from it. There's I'm Back to School, which started as a young girl that emailed me through my website. She saw that I liked fashion and people, and she's like, hey, like, I really like fashion. My family's super poor. I have to shop at Salvation Army. Like, how can I, like, have fashion sense and still whatever? I'm like, oh man, this is such a great message, because fashion isn't about brands. Fashion is about confidence and embracing yourself and your individuality, but being a young kid, young gal is extremely challenging to figure out how to be confident. So I created an event out of this email called I'm Back to School, and it was all about like, yeah, fashion's cool, but it's like cooler is being kind, and that's something that I grew up shopping at garage sales a lot and stuff, and I liked it. Like, I always felt my mom had a way of making it kind of feel magical, and I thought that there's so much pressure already, so how can we help kids feel more confident with what they have and knowing that they have everything already that they need to have like a really great, powerful, amazing life, but kids are also really mean, so how to teach them how to deal with bullies. That was a fun event. I did an event called I Am Fabulous, which again was a senior citizen fashion show. All my models were a little older. But like I said, I like seniors. There's been I Am Rescued, which is a dog rescue event. There's been I Am Inspired, which is an event that merges fashion and art. I am going to take a nap soon. So yeah, like I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, I do and I don't. And I think that there's such beauty in like not being so sure and so confident. Like, I actually struggle with the term when someone says they're an expert, because like how can you be an expert forever? Like things change so fast, so it's like you can just be really adaptable, I think, or you can be really fluid or nimble. But I think expert sometimes, I don't really like that term. So then these are just some of my things. The last thing that I made that I'm pretty proud of, that was definitely a labor of love, and I knew when I started working on it that I'm like, this will be the death of me, because I'm already super burnt out, but I just can't stop myself. So I had a bunch of people reach out not too long ago, just being like, hey, like, we don't really have like a fashion week here, and we don't really have like a hub, and like, you should create Fashion Week. I was like, sure, yeah, like all my spare time, just no big deal. And so then of course, like the seed was planted, and I was like, yeah, like we don't really have this. And so I started just asking a lot of questions to people that were actually fashion designers in the community, or producers or boutique owners, and seeing like, what would you like to see here? Instead of just being like, here's our Fashion Week, hope you like it. And what I learned is like, there's a lot of people making and doing things already, and they just didn't have a platform. And so I started talking with my friend and cohort, Jana Peliquin, to talk about like, what would Fashion Week look like if we created it here, and what would the mission be, because it has to have a mission and a reason for existing before we do anything. So we got on the whiteboard and we started talking about all of the things that we knew and all the things we didn't know and all of the what ifs and the why nots. And there was definitely one thing we didn't have, which was money. We had negative money. We had like, but I think, I'm like, we don't need money. I'm like, I mean, we could use it, but like, let's figure out what we can do. We both had full-time jobs plus. I think nowadays everyone has like full-time jobs plus. So we just got there and we just started connecting all the dots and being like, what if this person got involved here? What if we took this venue and created this experience? And like, I'll stand here and say I'm like super proud of it. I have a hard time taking credit for things because it's like the whole community built it in my eyes, but I did spearhead it with Jana, and it's grown to a pretty big platform. I think last fall we had 18 events, and The other cool thing is we're getting lots of press, actually nationally, about our focus on inclusivity, which is super important to me. And I think, you know, it was funny, like some of the criticism we get would be like, well, this isn't like New York Fashion Week, or this isn't, I'm like, yeah, because we're not New York, or we're not LA. You know, we had everything from like a drag queen artistry of drag panel discussion, which I think is really interesting, and like their perspective on fashion, and, you know, bringing a new audience to that. And so it's been really fun. You know, we're working on spring, we do it spring and fall. And we're starting to get a lot of attention nationally from different brands that see again, the authenticity or the audience or the millennials, I don't know what they see, but the content, I'm trying to use all the buzzwords, millennial-driven experiential content or something. Anyway, and I mean that in like a kind, joking way, but my whole point of all of this is just start doing things and letting it naturally evolve, because I think at the end of the day, you might have this idea in your head of like what you want to make, but it might end up looking way different in a better way. And I think it's super scary to put yourself out there. I'm actually like an extremely like uber sensitive person. Like everything hurts my feelings, and so it's actually been hard for me to be in the spotlight, because I like soak in everyone's emotions and feelings. Like actually my last Instagram post is like super emo. But it's true, but I also think that there's been, that's also a strength of mine, is feeling everyone's feelings, because I'm definitely an empath, and that's helped me like guide my, like what I want to do and how I want to spend my time. So my summary of all of this is letting go of being a perfectionist was like one of the best things I ever did, and I'm still figuring it out, but I love connecting people, and I love sharing stories, and I think we're all like looking for connections. I think I actually just, I'm a brand ambassador for Bumble, which is an app that's all about connections, and so it's finally paying off a little bit to be able to, you know, help align my values with a company that I really believe in, which is pretty cool. So I would have never expected that. Like I still think of myself in like that dorm in North Dakota, like a super religious roommate, being like, where am I? And like, why am I not around more people? And so I'm really super grateful. And my mom, with like all her worrying and all her nervousness, is like super, you know, proud of me. And like, I was just talking to someone, they're like, what's your next big event? And I was like, I really want to do a really cool surprise retirement for my mom. And so I'm working on like gathering all these like photos and stories of like her career, because it's funny, because I think she's doing the most important work, which is like taking care of elders. And like she doesn't get like any newspaper articles written about her or like get on TV or anything, because she's, you know, out there doing the real work. But what I want to do is shine light on people like her who are doing important work. And I'm gonna cry. That's the end of my talk. There's my dog.